Hello. I don't know if you can see me. This may be better. Hey, I'm Kasim. Uh, this may be the first time many of you have seen me. I decided finally to come out and share what I know about what's really going on, what's really at stake, what's really happening. You see, some of us are very sensitive to the ebb and flow of energy, and we've been activated in a way that we can't describe, but we're restless because we sense change all about. We're all bathed in this sort of collective electromagnetic field of living aware energies, and they talk to one another and they utilize us to transmute forces, awareness, intent, because we are form and we're capable of, I forgot something on my face. We're capable of transmuting force. The big secret is that we are not what we think we are. And I'll clarify. It needs clarification. My name is Kasim, and we each have names. And we consider ourselves by our names to be a singular being. We don't consider ourselves to be something more than the labels we tend to give ourselves, the things, the ideas we adopt for ourselves that we use to define our sense of existence by, right? I mean, I am an HVAC technician. I am black, I am a man. I am this, I am that. And it's all based on extrapolating what I am based on what I observe that I am not. And that's faulty thinking, because if your sense of who and what you are is always evolving based on what you can see, taste, touch, or smell, well, then that sort of confines your sense of identity to a very physical box. But this reality we live in is something so much more. And when we can expand our thinking and our language to encompass those ideas, it reveals a secret, a more hidden nature of energy and the exchange of energy and the way it all relates. We've all heard the term matrix. And we all have our ideas about what a matrix is, what the matrix is, right? It's what you make of it. It's a computer-generated simulation, right? It's not far from the truth, actually. It's really quite weird to... It works this way. Light itself is alive. It's living. The photon is aware. It's a unit of awareness incarnate, fractured from potential. And when given motion, it expresses that potential in a unique way. And the marriage of the force and the form taking shape, synthesizing to create something new, is the process of creation. That's creation. And all things are a product of it. And the very first emanation of that primordial marriage of force and form is the friction that gives us heat and light. And the vibration that is imposed on these particles that stir them to light, to life, to heat, to take a motion or an action, to take that force, and they use it it impacts them, so it moves them, it vibrates them. So there's an action taking place, and energy is never created or destroyed, right? It's always just changed. So the coupling of that force and form is what gives us the building blocks for the mechanics, or the mechanics for creation in all its forms. And that's really quite vague, but I promise you, I'll go into so much depth you'll throw up. But I'm really pretty good at explaining this stuff, I find, and most people who know me, who actually sit and listen to me long enough, start to see the picture I paint, and they can visualize what I'm saying. They realize its importance. So I've been encouraged to get this out because I'm good at explaining. You see, I have Saturn and Mars in the third house. I also have Jupiter there, but they're all in Virgo. Jupiter's in the second house. Anyway, for those of you who know that stuff, you understand that I make war by communication. And I'm a messenger of sorts. I'm given information and I move it along. So, force and form. And I'm saying that to say the photon is the very first manifestation of this force and form, right? And the photon itself is just particles that have been given purpose by their motion to express something. And whatever it is they express is based on the available principles that they're being really observed by. In each dimension, their vibration, their motion gives them new potential for creation, a new matrix, a new dimension of expressing their motion and what they're doing. But it's really quite odd because the universe itself is a singularity, and when vibration introduced into that, what we've referred to as ether, what physicists call a form of I believe baryon, and don't quote me on this, but it's a form of subatomic particle that has not been given motion. And it's essentially dark matter. It's matter at rest, matter outside of time, matter outside of polarity. But once this matter is stirred into motion, it creates light. So, you know, when you hear about in the Bible, it talks about how when God spoke, they were referring to what the Norse, I believe it was the Norse who referred to the word, W-Y-R-D, like the weird. It is the intent of the mind being vocalized through the power of words, vibration, sound. The sound that we assign the ideas that we intend express, they impose upon the field potentials for creation. And those potentials are typically picked up by other people because we're the path of least resistance for energy to transmute itself through. But if not us, it actually takes shape, it takes root in time and space, and you'll find that circumstances are often shaped by our words and our intent. And there's a whole, like, oh man, there's so many sciences behind that, it's mind-boggling. But that wasn't what I intended to talk about now. I wanted to talk about how the photon is alive. The photon is experiencing itself through us. And this photon is self-aware, and it has fractured itself. And when you get into quantum physics, you realize that through quantum superposition, and because we understand all timelines are happening at once, what we're experiencing is really sort of the past, actually. This has already happened. We're just going along for the ride. We're experiencing it to gather information. And that's what the photon is doing. It's using us to gather information. And it goes back to the very first analogy, the illustration I tried to use with you considering yourself a single being. You're not. You know, they talk about how we are a collection, on average, of about 50 trillion other smaller organisms, each experiencing their own reality subjectively, and in a community where they exist as a cohesive unit, a cohesive community. So there's a form of communication taking place, interactions between them, and a subjective experience that allows them to engage reality from their own strengths and weaknesses, to process instructions handed to them by our minds, and to, through some sort of sense of destiny they're filled with, intuitively, because they only, you know, possess a very rudimentary form of intelligence, process intuitively the instructions we give them. Who's we? You know, are you are you communicating with your cells individually, each at once? Are you forcing your heart to beat, your hair to grow, your nails? You know, who's listening to me speak? Is it you, your name, or is it you, the 50 trillion other cells, each engaged in their own reality, who jump when you jump, and they get cut when you get cut, right? You have red blood cells who, for some reason, are just filled with this sense of knowing that there's a place somewhere at the edge of space that they need to get to. It's a cut, right? You get cut, and it's nothing to you. You see a little blood, but what you don't realize is billions of blood cells have been sent out to war to fight off infection and to give up their lives, to change their state, to clot the wound so that you can continue playing, right? It's kind of screwed up when you think about it, but that's the nature of things. It's the veil. They live under another veil, another firmament, another electromagnetic spectrum deeper within us, a universe within a universe. And that's how we're all separated. Because the higher you go, you find that we're all connected in more profound ways than you can imagine. We all play a part in a larger cohesive whole that's intelligent and using us to process force, to gather information so that it can become self-aware through us. And through our self-awareness, it becomes self-aware. I can go on and on and on and on and on about this for hours and hours. I intend to. Not now. This is technically my introduction, and I just wanted to reveal a bit about what I know and what I'm here to talk about. And that is our relationship with the universe, our relationship with ourselves, and what's really at stake. And what's at stake is your awareness. It's your participation in the evolution of this ride we're all a part of. This experience, this moment in time, this massive sine wave. The galaxy itself is a giant sine wave, right? You're looking down on it from God's perspective. You see a spiral. But in 2 dimensions, you see duality. The vibration gives it an equilibrium that moves it above and below an ecliptic, giving it duality, giving it a division of principles of good and evil, depending on what perspective you're standing from, right? You're looking at. Because if you're standing above the ecliptic, looking below, everything from your perspective is hidden. So it's in the dark. It'd be considered evil. And it's really quite interesting because the entire universe is constructed based on the perspective of the photon dividing itself in time and space and observing itself through a quantum state, seeing all its potential and building from that potential, imprinting it on us through our DNA. When we incarnate into these lower waters, into the waters of the earth, the condensed, magnetically sealed, hermetic atmosphere, where through quadruplicity, force and form have been given the ability to change their state, so that matter can transmute force through form by a 4-part harmony, a 4-part system. It's really just a 4-part state that gives all matter its logic. It's really interesting, quadruplicity, and it gives our mathematical operations. It gives us the elements. It gives us the cross. Force and form is the Holy Cross. Ah, you know that. It's the Holy Cross, force and form. It's the EKG meter. It's the measurement of when you see um, a force impact a form. It's a measurement of the tremor that takes place as that force is received and transmuted by whatever means it needs to be to give new shape to that force in physicality. So, quadruplicity is the elements: earth, solid, air, gas, water, liquid, fire, plasma, right? Fire, flux, division, fission, right? Air, separation, duality of perspective, being scattered so that all particles have the ability to see between things and to judge based on that, based on the multiple perspectives a scattered form provides it. Water is resonance, it's flow, where particles can take a cohesive form and indiscriminately accept all their traits as true and flow as a single unit. It's multiplication. And earth, structure, rigidity, integrity, right? Where matter can be stacked. Addition. The universe is intelligent, and in 2 dimensions it gives us polarity and duality. In the 3rd dimension we see that EKG meter become a toroidal field. It becomes the sine wave. It takes on the form of Aries, moving in a toroidal, torus-like fashion. The torsion field, it's the bull that spins with the power of a bull. Processing force and form through a sort of Fibonacci sequence. So you see the zodiac from one-dimensional state, the perspective of God looking down, and then you see how it gives us the entire blueprint of the heavens in the form of a massive fire serpent, a sine wave, a torsion field of time and space where force has impacted ether, and because of that action it's met restriction, and that restriction has given it the division of force and form. That restriction slowing light, slowing the ether, but stirring it to motion is what creates time. And oh man, I can go on and on. I intend to. And if you lasted this long, well then, welcome to my makeshift mystery school. I'll be explaining all that I know. And man, I know a lot. I know a whole lot. And I'll share it all. Pleasure to meet you. Again, I'm Kasim. And let me know what you think in the comments. Peace.